Talk more about that proposed California gun law now with some experts well versed on the issue. In Las Vegas, joining us is political strategist and author and attorney Barack Lurie. Also with us is Barrett Holmes Pittner. He's also an author and professor at George Washington University. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us. Barrett, I'll start with you. California's original ban on assault weapons was overturned by the Supreme Court. Would a law like Governor Newsom, the one he's talking about, hold up in the Supreme Court?
Frankly, it's really hard to predict what the Supreme Court's going to do. Like a lot of people thought the Texas abortion law would not hold up. That the conservative judges, people suspected that they might side with it, but the concept was so absurd that a lot of people just believed that the Supreme Court wouldn't approve of it or sustain it. So it's really hard to predict what the Supreme Court's going to do. But at this point, that's not really the question. The question is, there's like a template now of the laws that states can draw up pertaining to anything that they don't like. Let's see if they can craft this template and with the precise language and see what the Supreme Court says. And we're kind of in this weird uncharted territory.
And let's talk about this recent shooting that happened at a Michigan high school. Barack, a 15-year-old whose parents gave him an assault-style handgun as an early Christmas gift, shot and killed 4 students. Obviously, people heartbroken by this. His parents were actually in court today facing manslaughter charges. Barack, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, whether or not you think it's fair.
Well, it really depends on the facts, right? So if they, as parents, fail to safeguard the gun in a place such that their apparently mentally ill son would be able to get it and have access to it with the ammunition, then yeah, then they are responsible. It is very similar to having a pool and knowing that there are young kids nearby and they do nothing to safeguard the possibility of those kids falling into the pool. So it's very similar to that. But if I may, Laverne, talking about the Texas law and also, for that matter, the new Gavin Newsom law, as you know, I'm firmly conservative. I'm firmly against abortion. However, I am firmly against this Texas abortion law. I find it to be very offensive in terms of its effort to deputize an average citizen to become a private attorney general to go ahead and report people for abortions. I find that very offensive and very wrong. I do want to correct a little bit on the Supreme Court status. The court simply said that they're not going to overturn the law provisionally until such time as they eventually rule on the Texas abortion law. So for the time being, they're not going to overturn it. I do think that they will overturn it precisely for the reasons I mentioned. It does not allow for the right way of proceeding, which is that the state needs to be the one in charge of enforcing abortion laws. So while I applaud the notion that there should be more restrictions on abortion, I don't think that this is the way to do it. Likewise, with the Gavin Newsom effort here, this sort of Me Too sort of approach to banning assault weapons and otherwise, I think that's not going to fly for exactly the same reasons. There are many other problems with the law as well, being that we're running afoul of the Second Amendment, which is a very big deal in this country. And also the fact that there's a difference between the right to have a gun and the supposed right to have an abortion. Those are two very different things. And then, of course, the difficulty of suing these handgun and assault weapon makers in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying your thoughts on that and clarifying the actual law there. But certainly a lot to unpack. And Barrett, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because at the end of the day, people are wondering in terms of the gun control, why would a 15-year-old be given a gun as a gift? Why is it so readily available? And there's been school shooting after school shooting. We don't hear about this in other countries. Barrett, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think America has this a culture that encourages kind of like irresponsible gun ownership, where it's like a casual thing. It's fun or whatnot. You can give it to your son for a Christmas present. There's so many Americans that the notion of that just seems just so absurd that it's just clearly dangerous. But there's clearly a segment of America that thinks that is acceptable. And the tragedy is that that segment now has access to like deadly lethal weapons. So when they make a mistake, it's calamitous. It's not something marginal that you kind of like can overlook. It kills people. And so it might be a small segment, but it's a lethal impact. And I think that's the problem. There's just so many issues with all of this. And I'd also say regarding the Supreme Court and the California law and in Texas is we're in this weird uncharted state where we don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do regarding the Texas decision, but this has opened the floodgates for people to draft almost, copycat laws in their states and just see what the Supreme Court's going to do. And we just really don't know what the trajectory is going to be. And so we're in this really, really bizarre environment where it makes sense for people to copy Texas's template and see what will happen. And, we can guess what we think will happen, but we really don't know because this court's quite unpredictable.
Yeah.
Barack, I want to get back to these shootings, though. It's the 9th anniversary of the Sandy Hook school shooting in Connecticut. Still no major charges in federal gun laws. Your thoughts?
Well, look, these are horrific crimes, no doubt about that. And I do think that whoever is charged with them should be charged with these horrific crimes. But I do not feel that the Second Amendment authorizes somehow the restricting of guns. The issue is not about the restricting of guns. You will not change the violence. You will not change these mayhems. A lot of these guns that are obtained fully legally, even in very gun restrictive states. So restricting guns you might as well say, well, we're not going to be able to stop accidents. Well, I'm sorry. What I'm saying
Barack,
is that
no, I just said in other
to
countries you do not hear about. I have to respectfully interject because this is a situation where in other countries you do not hear about people shooting up schools.
There are other
you
countries
do
as
not
well.
hear about it at the level that it is in the United States.
I got to interject here real quick
hold
because
on.
Real quick. But the issue is
I'm trying to answer the question.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Let me answer the question.
Go ahead.
Because first of all, the Anders Breivik killings, for example, in Norway. I mean, he killed 21 people right there. So we've got that example. We have other examples as well. Yes, it's true that we have more guns in America, but we also have more freedom in America. And there's all sorts of other issues associated with it. We cannot restrict guns and say that guns are the reasons why we have it. The reason why we have these horrific things, in my opinion,
well, they're restricting abortions. I thought you said we had freedom in this country, Barack. I got to interject because when you make a point, I got a counterpoint.
There's mental illness in this country. There's mental illness in this country. And for that matter,
there's mental illness in countries all around the world.
But
they don't shoot up schools.
Not like
mental
America.
Mental illness is always going to be an issue in countless places. But the question is like, how much damage do we allow people to inflict on other people based on the various problems that they may have? If you have access to a gun and you're mentally ill, it makes it much easier for you to inflict lethal damage on unsuspecting people. So it's not a question of mental illness. It's mental. Hey, let me answer the question. It's mental illness with an access to lethal weapons. And that creates a cocktail where people in schools and all walks of life, their freedom gets taken away from them. Like this notion that people having access to lethal weapons that can kill people instantaneously is somehow an extension of freedom as it takes people's lives and freedoms away is just the most absurd thing I've ever heard. How can losing your life
Okay, so we hear your
freedom?
point.
That doesn't make
Barrett,
sense.
I want to let Barack get his response in, if we could.
Look, I don't disagree that mental illness with access is a big problem. Of course it is. But we also have the fact that in Chicago and many other very gun restrictive states where they do not allow guns virtually at all, you have massive mayhem there. In fact, you have more in killings in Chicago, for example, than you do in other places where there is allowance of guns, and gun laws are a little bit looser on those things. So I think you're wrong. I mean, if you look at the correlations, you'll see that the more restrictive you are on guns, the more you have these crimes and murders. Chicago is a perfect example of that. Washington, D.C. is a perfect example.
But where are the people in Chicago? Where are the people getting the guns in the streets, Barack? I have to interject. The people in those minority communities.
Criminals are getting them from everywhere. If you think that criminals will not they will not respect the laws. That's why they call them criminals. Criminals will get guns regardless of how you restrict them. That's just the way it is. And the best way to handle this
very
is
true,
to not
Barack. And I apologize,
guns.
gentlemen. I do have to wrap this up. Great conversation, great debate. Love having you both here. Thanks so much. We got to wrap now. Thanks so much and take care, Barack and Barrett. Appreciate you joining us. And stay with us, everyone. We have more on the development of a committee that continues its probe into the deadly Capitol insurrection. The very latest as federal leaders decide if another member of former President Donald Trump's camp should be held in contempt of Congress. That story and much more straight ahead. This is BNC.